When I pulled into her family's driveway in my old, beat-up Ford, I knew I'd be judged, but I didn't expect to be laughed at. Her brother smirked and said, "Did you drive that from a junkyard?" Her mom wouldn't even touch the wine I brought. They call me a nobody, a joke, just some guy running diners. 2 weeks later, they walked into my 5-star resort, not knowing the man they humiliated owned the building they were standing in. And that night, I gave them the kind of dinner they'd never forget. Thank you for always being with us. Every view and every share from you means the world. If our stories have touched you, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment telling us where you're watching from. Who knows, the next story might just have a piece of you in it. They say first impressions are everything. I wish I could tell you that when I pulled into the McConnell driveway, things went smoothly. But no, that driveway, that cursed cobblestone driveway, became the stage for one of the most humiliating moments of my adult life. I drove up in my old 2001 Ford Taurus. Faded maroon paint, slight dent on the back bumper, a soft whine from the engine if you turned the wheel too sharply. It was the same car I used back in college, the one I swore I'd keep until the day it died. Nostalgia, I guess, or stubbornness. Either way, that car was more than just metal and bolts. It was a piece of who I used to be, but to them, it was a joke. As I stepped out of the driver's seat with a bottle of vintage wine I'd brought as a gift, I saw him, Hunter McConnell, her older brother, leaning against the porch railing, arms crossed, dressed in a Ralph Lauren polo like he was headed to a yacht club meeting instead of Sunday dinner. He didn't even say hello, just squinted at my car and let out a laugh loud enough to echo across the front lawn. "Damn, Emma wasn't kidding," he said. "You really are driving that thing?" Thought she dated up, not down. I forced a smile, walked past him, and offered the wine to her mom, who stood in the doorway. Mrs. McConnell gave me one of those tight-lipped smiles women use when they want to be polite but can't quite hide the disgust. She didn't even take the bottle. Instead, she stepped aside and said, "Shoes off before you enter, please. We just had the floors waxed." Emma appeared behind her, smiling apologetically, rushing over to give me a hug. She whispered, "I'm sorry. I didn't think they'd be like this." I believed her. At least I wanted to. The house was everything you'd expect from old Southern money. Mahogany banisters, a grandfather clock that ticked just a little too loud, walls decorated with oil portraits of people who probably hadn't smiled since 1850. Dinner wasn't for another hour, so they brought me into the sitting room. And that's when the interrogation began. "So, Nate," Mr. McConnell started, swirling his scotch like some courtroom attorney ready to discredit a witness. "Emma tells us you run a few restaurants?" I nodded. "Yes, I started a couple of spots back in college. They did well, so I expanded. I now own a few properties." Hunter cut me off. "So what? Like a couple diners? Do you wear a little paper hat and call out orders?" He laughed at his own joke. Nobody stopped him. Emma shifted uncomfortably on the couch beside me. Her mom just sipped her wine, like watching me squirm was part of the evening's entertainment. "I'm actually more involved in development now," I said calmly. "We've opened several boutique hotels and wellness resorts up north. It's a lot of behind-the-scenes work these days." "Oh," her mother chirped, clearly unimpressed. "So you're in hospitality. That's cute. I suppose someone has to do it." The air was thick with judgment. What stung the most wasn't their words. I've been underestimated before. It was that Emma didn't say a thing. Not once did she speak up. Not once did she say, "Hey, maybe cool it with the sarcasm." Or, "Actually, Nate's done pretty well for himself." She just sat there. I told myself she was nervous, caught between two worlds. But deep down, something started to shift in me that night. Something quiet. Something that said, these people don't just misunderstand me. They don't think I belong. And maybe, just maybe, Emma didn't either. I stayed quiet through dinner. I smiled, I nodded, I answered their passive-aggressive questions. I didn't touch the wine I brought. It sat there unopened, like an unspoken reminder of how unwelcome I really was. But as I drove away later that night, that old Ford Taurus humming down the tree-lined streets of their manicured neighborhood, I didn't feel ashamed. I felt focused. They had no idea who I really was. And if life has taught me anything, it's that being underestimated is the greatest gift you can be given. Because when the time comes to prove them wrong, it hits twice as hard. The thing about humiliation is it doesn't always hit you all at once. Sometimes it creeps in like a cold draft through an open window. That night, I didn't sleep. I laid in bed staring at the ceiling, playing every word over and over. Do you wear a little paper hat and call out orders? That's cute. Someone has to do it. They didn't just disrespect me. They laughed at everything I'd built with my bare hands. Every 16-hour day, I spent scrubbing floors at my first restaurant. Every rejected loan. Every time I fixed the sink myself because I couldn't afford a plumber. To them, I was a guy with an old car and a vague job description. And Emma, she just watched it happen. I didn't call her the next day. I didn't text. I needed space, not to cool down, but to think clearly. 3 days later, I got a message from her. Hey, I know it was rough. My family can be intense, but I want you to know I care about you. Please don't let that night define us. I stared at the screen for a long time. She didn't defend me then, but now that the dust had settled, she wanted to patch it over like it was just a bad date. No, that night did define something. It didn't define us. It defined me and what I needed to do next. 2 weeks later, I made a few calls. One to my general manager at Cedar Pines Resort, our newest property opening in the heart of wine country. Another to the PR team, asking them to reserve a private dining room at the Summit, our 5-star flagship restaurant, and to send a formal invitation, handwritten, to the McConnells. I told them it was a gesture of goodwill, but really, it was war. Saturday evening, 7 p.m. sharp, the McConnells arrived dressed to the nines. Mr. McConnell in his tailored gray blazer, Mother McConnell in a pearl necklace big enough to choke a horse, and Hunter in a blazer he clearly thought screamed old money. Emma came too, in a sleek blue dress that made me forget for just a moment how angry I was. The hostess greeted them at the door with practiced warmth. Right this way, Mr. and Mrs. McConnell. We've been expecting you. They looked around, wide-eyed. The summit was breathtaking. A panoramic view of the mountains, glass walls glowing with soft golden light. Candlelit tables, live violin playing in the corner. This place must cost a fortune, Hunter whispered. Mrs. McConnell beamed. About time we went somewhere with class. Oh, you have no idea. They were led to the private suite. Fireplace, personalized wine list, chef's tasting menu. I watched from behind the tinted glass of the manager's office, every movement choreographed. They thought they were dining in luxury because someone at Emma's boyfriend's little hospitality job pulled a few strings. They had no idea they were sitting in my house. Until I stepped in. The doors opened. Every fork paused midair. Every eye turned to me. I walked in slow, confident. Black suit. No tie. The room quiet as a courtroom before the verdict drops. Mrs. McConnell blinked twice. Nathan, she stammered. Emma's lips parted in shock. Hunter muttered, "What the hell?" I smiled. Calm. Cold. Good evening. I hope you've been enjoying your dinner. I thought it was time to properly introduce myself. Their eyes narrowed, confused. My name is Nathan Reyes. I'm the founder and CEO of Reyes Hospitality Group. We own and operate the Summit, along with 12 other restaurants and 5 luxury resorts across the state, including the one your company, Mr. McConnell, held their executive retreat at last spring. Dead silence. Then a clatter. Mr. McConnell had dropped his fork. Tonight's dinner is on the house. Consider it my way of returning the hospitality you showed me 2 weeks ago. Mrs. McConnell tried to recover. I had no idea. I didn't let her finish. No, you didn't. But that's the thing about judging people based on their car or their clothes. You missed the part that matters most. I turned to Emma last. Her eyes shimmered. Embarrassment? Regret? Maybe both. I came to your home that night thinking I had something to prove. Now I know I don't. Because respect isn't something you earn with a bank balance. It's what people either choose to give or withhold. Then I walked out, leaving the 4 of them frozen in place, like actors in a scene that had flipped too fast for the script to catch up. And as the doors closed behind me, I smiled, because that was the beginning of the end and the start of something far better. It only took 24 hours. The next morning, my assistant walked into my office with a puzzled look. You've got 5 voicemails from someone named Hunter McConnell, and an email from a Patricia McConnell titled Dinner Regret. I didn't need to listen. I could already picture it. Mrs. McConnell crafting an apology that wasn't really an apology. The kind where the words misunderstanding and miscommunication did most of the heavy lifting. Hunter probably tried to play it cool, maybe even pitch a business idea, now that he knew I wasn't just the guy with the diner. But I wasn't interested in hearing from them. What I didn't expect, though, was Emma showing up at my office. She didn't call. She didn't text. Just appeared. It was around 6 p.m. Most of the staff had already gone home, and I was sipping cold black coffee and going through renovation plans for a new location in Denver. When the knock came, I looked up, and there she was. Same blue dress from dinner. No makeup. Eyes tired. She looked smaller somehow. Or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time. "Nate," she said softly. "Can we talk?" I wanted to say no. I should have said no. But instead, I stood and opened the door wider. We sat in silence for what felt like forever. Finally, she whispered, "You made them look so small." I raised an eyebrow. I didn't have to. They did that all by themselves. She winced. "I know. I should have stopped them that night. I should have said something." "You didn't." I froze, she said, voice cracking. "I've always let them control the room. I thought if I just stayed quiet, they'd eventually accept you." I leaned back. "But I didn't need them to accept me, Emma. I needed you to respect me. And that starts with standing by me when it matters most. Not when it's safe, not when it's convenient." She reached across the desk, her hand inches from mine. "What we had, it was real, wasn't it?" I didn't move. "It was," I said. But so was that silence. And I can't unhear it. That night, I drove home not in my Taurus, but in my new Tesla Roadster. Not because I needed a flex, but because I'd finally stopped hiding. I'd built everything from nothing. And I'd spent years convincing myself that humility meant shrinking. That if I played small, I'd find someone who loved me for my soul, not my signature. But humility doesn't mean invisibility. And that night, I decided I wouldn't disappear again. A week passed, then 2. The McConnells didn't try to contact me again, not directly at least. But I did get a request from Hunter's bank asking for a meeting with one of my resorts to discuss a potential financing partnership. I smiled at that one, declined the meeting. Then came the email from Emma. "I'm sorry. I wish I'd had the courage to stand up for you when it mattered. I understand now why you walked away. I just hope you know you meant something to me. Not for what you had, but for who you are." It took me a full day to write back. "I believe you, and I forgive you. But some bridges, once crossed, are better left behind. Take care, Emma." And just like that, she became a chapter, not the ending. The story could have ended there. But fate? It's had a twisted sense of humor. Because a month later, as I was reviewing a list of VIP clients checking into one of our luxury winter resorts, I saw a familiar name. Patricia McConnell, followed by +3 guests. Apparently, the McConnells had booked a full-service spa weekend for the holidays, never realizing that the man they mocked in their living room was now the one signing their room upgrades. And believe me, I had a plan for that moment, but not the one you might expect. I could have made a call. One call to the concierge desk, and their entire spa weekend would have turned to ash. No heated towel service. No private suite. No complimentary wine pairing. Just a polite, corporate "there seems to have been a booking error." But I didn't. Because revenge is easy. Grace? Grace is what leaves people speechless. So instead of canceling their reservation, I upgraded it. Presidential suite. Custom pillow menu. In-room massage. A handwritten welcome letter on gilded parchment paper, signed by me. I don't know what their faces looked like when they read it, but I know what they must have felt. That tight knot of guilt in your throat when kindness comes from the one you wronged. The kind that doesn't scream, "Look who's winning now," but whispers, "You never had power over me." I didn't expect to see them, but I happened to be on site that weekend, meeting with investors. And as I was stepping into the elevator, the doors slid open, and there they were. Mr. McConnell froze. Hunter's cocky smirk evaporated. Mrs. McConnell looked down like the carpet had suddenly become the most interesting thing in the world. Emma wasn't with them. "Mr. Reyes," Patricia said quietly. I turned. "Enjoying your stay?" No sarcasm, no bite, Just calm. She nodded slowly. This place is incredible. Hunter finally spoke. Listen, about what happened. I raised a hand. No need. I appreciate you choosing us. That's all. And I meant it. Not because they deserve forgiveness, but because I had moved on. That night, I walked the quiet paths of the resort, snow crunching under my boots, steam rising from the hot spring pools, laughter echoing from families warming by fire pits. This was mine. Not just the property, but the peace, the dignity, the control over my own story. You see, they laughed at the man in the old car because they thought wealth was the only thing that mattered. But what they never understood was this. I didn't build an empire to prove something. I built it so I'd never again need to beg anyone to see my worth. A few weeks later, a handwritten envelope arrived at my office. It was from Emma. Inside was a simple note. Asterisk, I saw the photos. The presidential suite. The way my parents looked, humbled. I don't know if they'll ever change. But that night changed me. You gave them kindness when they deserved contempt. And that reminded me who you are. I'm sorry it took me too long to stand beside you. I hope, wherever life takes you next, you never stop walking tall. Asterisk, I folded the note, tucked it away in my desk. Some stories end with a ring, some with revenge. But mine ended with respect. Not from them, from myself. In a world obsessed with appearances, it's easy to judge a man by the car he drives or the clothes he wears. But real worth isn't loud. It doesn't need validation. It doesn't flash. It builds. Quietly. Consistently. This story isn't about revenge. It's about dignity. About rising so high that you no longer need to put others down, even when they did everything to keep you beneath them. Sometimes, the most powerful statement you can make is simply choosing to walk away with grace, knowing exactly who you are, and letting them choke on their assumptions. Subscribe to the channel now and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next story about betrayal, revenge, and redemption. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. See you in the next story.